The last piece I want to talk to you about is Antonin Dvorak's Symphony No. 9, subtitled From the New World. The reason it's called From the New World is because in 1892 Dvorak was invited to come to the United States to be the director of the National Conservatory of Music in New York City. Reportedly, they lured him with the immense salary of $15,000 a year, and that was enough to bring him over from Europe. It's important to note that in Europe in particular, a wave of nationalism was moving through the arts in general and music in particular. You may know some of Dvorak's Slavonic dances, for instance, but you can also think of things like Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsodies. You can think of pieces like the Moldau by Smetana. You can think of Mikhail Glinka. I just heard on the radio the other night. In 1848, wrote the first piece of music, the first piece of classical music to use Russian folk music. And so, right around this time, composers were very much looking to the musical resources of their own countries in order to sort of forge a national identity in the music that they were writing. And Dvorak was no exception. Now, the story goes that Dvorak came to America, and while he was in his post at the National Conservatory, a student by the name of Harry T. Burleigh met with Dvorak and sang for him some spirituals. Burleigh was a very fine singer, a composer, and most importantly, a double bassist. And performed for Dvorak, went on to have a very long and important career. And Dvorak was very moved by the spirituals that Burleigh sung to him. And so Dvorak wrote his Symphony from the New World and wove in some of these spirituals that he had heard performed. And so when people talk about Dvorak's New World Symphony, they kind of base their assessment, they base their story on two quotations, which I'm going to share with you here right now. Not only did Dvorak look to spirituals, but he also looked to Native American music. And there are some people who cite or hear a kind of Native American influence in his music, and he says, I have not actually used any of the Native American melodies. I have simply written original themes embodying the peculiarities of the Indian music, and using these themes as subjects, have developed them with all the resources of modern rhythms, counterpoint, and orchestral color. That was in an interview with the New York Herald just prior to the premiere of the New World Symphony. So here he's saying he listened to a lot of Native American melodies. He didn't use them per se, but was kind of inspired by them. He also said, I am convinced that the future music of this country must be founded on what are called Negro melodies. These can be the foundation of a serious and original school of composition to be developed in the United States. These beautiful and varied themes are the product of the soil. They are the folk songs of America, and your composers must turn to them. Now, the story goes that with this quotation, Dvorak single-handedly altered the course of musical composition in America. But that's not what really happened. We can go back almost 50 years and find composers who were already working with music of African Americans, with Creoles, and Native American music as well. A composer by the name of George Whiting talked about Louis Moreau Gottschalk's Creole-inspired music. That music dates from the 1850s, and Whiting was talking about it in lectures in 1884. And so this talk was about 10 years before Dvorak came to America. Gottschalk's music was nearly 40 years before Dvorak came to America. I want to pause for a minute and give you a chance to hear some of Gottschalk's music.